by allowing the electrons which are present in the higher electronic orbit to jump and occupy the shell, which is K shell. Just now you have created vacancy there. Okay, once again I will repeat. What did I tell? An energetic radiation like gamma radiation has fallen on an atom. Fine. So now what had happened? The radiation has ejected an electron from K shell. Are you following? K shell, the electron is ejected out.
Yes, ma'am.
Fine. So that vacancy has to be filled up. So how it is filled up? The electrons which are present in the outermost orbit, they will try to jump to K shell. Fine. So as a result, the electrons in a higher shell, they are more energetic compared to that are present in K shell. When it jumps from higher level to K shell, what happens? The energy is emitted out. It is very large amount of energy emitted out, so that is X-ray. Okay, so because the jumping is ending up at K shell, the energy emitted out that releases which wavelength? It releases lambda K, that is wavelength corresponding to K shell. So similarly, if the vacancy is generated in L shell, then it generates X-ray from L shell. Similarly, vacancy is created from M shell. X-rays generated from M shell. So that is why the subscript KLMNOP is used. Okay. So now I will come to different aspect of X-ray. So where it can be used, what are the characteristics of X-ray? So first type is called fluorescence. So fluorescence, it is a very important or very fascinating part of spectroscopy. So all, including from children to old age people, they will get fascinated by fluorescence. So what is fluorescence? So fluorescence is a phenomena in which X-ray falls on a specimen. Okay, the specimen absorbs the incident radiation in form of X-ray. Then it generates its own characteristic wavelength. It emits some other wavelength. Okay, and that can be detected by some detector. If it is in the visible region, you can use your spectrometer and you can see very nice color emitted by the specimen. So this emission of a different color, a different wavelength in different region of the spectra, electromagnetic spectra, due to incidence of X-ray on a specimen, that is defined as fluorescence. Okay. So there is one more term is there. It is called phosphorescence. So there is a difference between fluorescence and phosphorescence. So in fluorescence, X-ray falls on a specimen. So the specimen emits some wavelength and the wavelength can be recorded. That is immediate effect it is. But in phosphorescence, what happens? The specimen will be excited for few seconds, nanoseconds, microseconds. It may be, it depends on the specimen. Okay. So it is in the excited state, it remains in that state and slowly it emits the radiation afterwards. Okay. As a result, the specimen appears glittering. So it may look green colored, it may look red colored, it may look orange color, or it may look bright. The specimen looks bright for few seconds. Even though you remove the X-ray source, the specimen will be still bright, emitting the radiation. So after some interval, so the radiation emission stops and specimen comes to its neutral condition. So this is phosphorescence. So what is fluorescence? Fluorescence is also emission, but it is an immediate effect. Phosphorescence is also an emission, but it takes some time. Some time is there for the emission. Emission period will be there. So after that, the specimen will come to its natural state. Okay. So you can see in the slide on X-ray, I have shown it in the bottom fluorescence diagram. Okay. So there I have shown you electron levels. Okay, you can see that the electron is jumping from K shell to the next shell and coming back again to K shell, wavelength is emitted. So that wavelength I am calling it as lambda K, emitted by K shell. So similarly, there are various types of levels corresponding to sigma electron level and pi electron levels. Okay, so sigma neutral state, it jumps to sigma excited state. So that I have shown it as sigma and sigma star, and it comes back from excited state to natural state. Okay, and similarly pi neutral state to pi excited state, it jumps and it comes back. So these are all fluorescence part, it is a part of fluorescence. Okay, electronic transition. So now X-ray can be used for what? So X-ray is a very energetic tool, so it can be used in scattering. Okay, so scattering techniques it is used. So it can be used for scattering techniques of powder specimen, or it can be used for scattering of the crystal specimen, so bigger one. So scanning, photographing, X-ray photographs you have seen, medicine, laboratory, etc. you might have visited, you have taken X-ray photograph. Okay, this is the application of X-ray. So in powder photographic method, so actually you will be doing this in 4th semester, experiment is there. So you will be given a powder specimen and it is irradiated with X-ray, and X-ray will get scattered because of the powder specimen, and the scattered X-rays are photographed as a function of angle, different angles it is photographed, and intensity is plotted. So down you can see I have plotted powder method a graph, that is intensity of X-ray is plotted as a function of theta. Okay, at the different positions of the detector, theta is the position of the detector. Okay, so you can see peaks are found. Peaks means intensity of X-ray is maximum. The photo multiplier to it observes maximum reading at this position of the detector. Okay, then I can be plotted as a function of theta, so you will get a discrete graph like this. This is powder photograph method. So second is you can use crystal. Crystal means it can be nano, it can be micro, or it can be a bigger one also. You can use a single crystal. Okay, so you can mount, you see on the right side I have shown you a photograph. So photographic strip I have written there. So below that I have shown a method. So a needle is mounted. So actually photographic strip is rolled and it is formed a circle. So for example, this is my paper, rectangular paper. So I can round it like this. So you can see here what has happened. It has formed the strip is rounded in form of a cylinder. Okay. So now this is my needle. Fine. So I'll keep the needle here in between the photographic plate. Okay. So this is tip of the needle. The upper portion of the pen is tip of the needle. So here I'll mount the crystal. Okay, just dip this one inside the crystal mixture. One or two crystal will get attached to this end. So keep now this one at the center of the photographic strip. Are you following? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
So now what
Yes,
happens?
ma'am.
X-ray is made to fall on this tip, which is having what? Which is having the crystals. Fine. So as a result, this is having crystal, this tip is having crystal. So this I have mounted here. Fine. So X-ray is made to fall here. So this tip is inside the strip like this. Fine. So here a hole is made, small hole is made. So from there X-ray is allowed to enter. So what happens? The crystal will what? Scatter the X-ray. I have shown it in the diagram. You can see that. The radiation gets scattered. So there are two directions. So one is the forward direction and another is the backward direction. So you can see that different cones I have shown you. Cones of different radius. Okay. So each cone refers to one particular crystal plane. It can be 001, 010, 111, 101. It can be anything. Different lattice have got different planes. What are planes? Miller indices, these are HKL. So crystal planes, these are all. Each plane will correspond to one cone there. So forward scattered radiation, they will form the forward cone. Backward scattered radiation will form the backward cone. So now these cones, they will form the fingerprints, their fingerprints on the photographic plate. Okay. So how is my photograph? The photograph is in form of a strip. So I have made it like this. So there are two trains. One is the forward train, another is the backward train. So forward train will make one print on one side of the strip. Backward they will make imprint on another side of the strip. If you open the strip, it will be a rectangle and it will show imprints as shown in the photographic strip. I have written with some arcs. Center is a dot, then left arc, right arc, okay, then again left arc, right arc. So there is one circle with concentric rings, there is second circle with concentric rings. Okay, the center is marked as 0. So first ring on left side you can call L1. Similarly on the left second ring you can call it as L2, L3, etc. Similarly the rings, actually you can see a part of a ring it is. So right you can call R1, R2, R3, etc. So now you take difference of L1 with respect to R1. What you will get? You will get diameter of the first ring. Got the point? Yes. So similarly, if you take left reading of the second, take the difference with respect to right ring of the second, you will get the diameter of the second. So you can complete this and you can find out diameter of different rings. Okay. So both the markings you can try. Using traveling microscope you can take the reading. So you will be doing this actually. Third and fourth semester there is an experiment is there. You will be doing this. Okay. So traveling microscope you use it, find out diameter of the ring. So from that you can find out the various lattice constant. So for example, if I am doing this sodium chloride, so what is sodium chloride? Unit cell, it is a simple cube it is. Sodium chloride, sodium and chlorine. Okay. So you can find out what is the lattice parameters. For example, A. What is A? Unit cell length, breadth and height. It is a simple cube. So length equal to breadth equal to height. So all are equal. So you can find that is called as small a. So small a you can find out, usually it comes out to be in angstrom units. 1 to 1.5 angstrom unit it comes out to be. Okay. So like this, what type of crystal you are using, it will give, the calculation will give the lattice parameters of that crystal. If you are using sodium chloride as a crystal, this photograph corresponds to sodium chloride. Similarly, you can use copper, you can use iron, you can use potassium bromide, you can use anything in form of crystal. Okay. Crystal means small quantity, minute quantity, attached to the needle, irradiate with X-ray, take the photograph, then analyze it. Okay. So this is called X-ray scattering and the analysis of X-ray scattering. Okay. So from this you can find out the lattice constants and lattice plates. So this is about X-ray. So what is X-ray? X-ray is a type of electromagnetic radiation emitted by the jumping of the outermost electron to the innermost shell of the atom, core, the core of the atom. That's why the energy emitted is very high energetic radiations. These are those days they didn't know what are these radiation. It was called as X-ray. The same name is continuum. So X-ray, there are two types. One is continuous spectra. So continuous spectra is because of Bremsstrahlung X-rays. Okay. And jumping from outermost shell to innermost shell, it's a core emission they are called. So they are identified as the line spectra. They are K, L, M, N, O, P, etc. So different material will have different absorption capacity for X-rays. Okay, so this completes your X-ray band of the electromagnetic spectrum. So is there any doubt? You can ask me. Yes? Any doubt? Hello? All are silent. Any doubt is there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Ask. Any doubt is there? You can ask me. So only I am talking. All are silent. Any doubt is there?
No, ma'am. You can
No, ma'am.
continue, ma'am.
You followed, no? Okay. Next.
Yes, ma'am.
Next part is we will go to below visible region. So that is infrared region, below red. So that studies comes under infrared spectra. It is called IR spectra. Fine. So you open the slide. So that topic mentioned is IR spectra. Got the slide? So now you can see that, let us say E is the energy incident on some media. It may be water, it may be some solution, it may be air, it may be something. Okay. So what happens? The energy, if it falls in the infrared region, it can be utilized in two types. The molecules will interact. Infrared radiation means only molecules will interact. Electrons, nucleus, they will be quiet because they don't get sufficient energy in infrared region. Fine. So usually the energy is utilized in two types. What are the two types? One is creating vibration in the molecule and another is to creating rotation in the molecule. So correspondingly, the energy is split into two parts. One is for vibration, another is for rotation. So total energy is equal to energy for vibration plus energy for rotation. So if it has to participate in vibrational motion, so then how the molecule should be? So you can see below I have put a diagram there. A spring like thing is put with two masses connected, M1 and M2. Okay. So this situation it is called as harmonic oscillator. So the two masses are there, M1 and M2. So it corresponds to two atoms. So I have taken it as a diatomic molecule. So it can exist in two types. So what are the two types? Either it can be a harmonic oscillator or it can be a diatomic molecule behaving as a dumbbell. That is rigid rotator it is. So they cannot come nearer to each other, rigid they are. Okay, angry with respect to each other. They will maintain perfect distance between them. Rigid rotator it is called. Okay, if they are friendly, then what they will do? They will come close, again go back. The Coulombic molecular attraction and Coulombic repulsion. Attraction, repulsion. It makes the molecule to oscillate. That's why it is called as oscillator. Harmonic oscillator. Why it is called harmonic oscillator? So particular wavelength is emitted, harmonic. It can be expressed in terms of sine and cosine. That's why it is called harmonic oscillation. Fine. So now you can see the distance between the two atoms in a diatomic molecule. I have taken it as small r. Okay. So if you locate center of gravity between the two atoms, so from that point to M1, I have taken distance as R1. The other one I have taken it as R2. Okay. So with this you can calculate ER and EV. That so much of derivation is there. That is not required. Okay. Only qualitative study you have to do. So from that you can find out the rotational energy of a molecule. So it is given by h cross square divided by 2I j into j plus 1. So what is j? J is rotational constant. Okay. And I is what? Moment of inertia of the molecule it is. You can find out moment of inertia. And nu bar. What is nu bar? Nu is the frequency. 1 by nu. So 1 by nu is nu bar. Okay. Nu bar it is given by 2b into j plus 1. So what is b? B is called rotational constant. Okay. So similarly you can calculate the vibrational energy of the molecule. So it is given by Hc nu bar bracket V plus half. So nu bar is again, it is inverse of nu. H is Planck's constant, c is velocity of light, V is the vibrational constant. Okay. So nu bar is also given by, for vibrational type, it is given by 1 upon 2 pi c under root k divided by m. So here what is k? K is force constant. So similar to spring, the masses are attracted, move towards each other and away. So the spring action, this is. That spring action has got a constant. So that is identified by k. Okay. Every molecule, the k value is constant. Okay. It is given in the encyclopedia or some reference logarithmic books, you can find it out. So m, what is m? It is reduced mass. So what is reduced mass? There are two masses, m1 and m2. So m1 into m2 divided by m1 plus m2. That is called reduced mass. C is velocity of light. So with this you can calculate the different energy levels in the rotational motion of the molecules and vibrational motion of the molecule. Okay. So with this you can show the rotational level and vibrational level of the molecule. You go to next slide. So there I have shown you rotational level and vibrational level. So left hand side I have shown you the total energy as E. Okay. And you can see left first part, that is left side, J value is varying 0, 1, 2, 3. That is the rotational interaction or rotational level. And right side I have shown V changing from 0 to 3. Those are the vibrational interactions. Okay. So the molecule in the beginning, it will be in the zeroth state, both rotation as well as vibration. So if it catches rotational motion, it can go to level 1, level 2, level 3. From that, it can jump to any level. Okay. So corresponding to its jump, the difference will determine the wavelength emitted. So that is the wavelength emitted in the rotational interaction. So similarly, if the molecule catches a vibrational motion, so it can stay in any one of the excited state 1, 2, 3 in the vibrational state and jump back to the neutral state or the intermediate state and correspondingly de-excites, and that energy is emitted as the vibrational wavelength or vibrational spectra. So that is why the molecule shows what type of spectra. It can show rotational spectra, it can show vibrational spectra, or together it can show rotational vibrational spectra. So this spectra all together, it is referred as infrared spectra. So what is infrared spectra? Infrared spectra, it is rotational, vibrational and rotational vibration. And main process here is absorption. Infrared spectroscopy, it only talks about absorption, no other procedure here. Okay. And what are the application of infrared spectroscopy? You can identify, it is very very sensitive it is. So just like a fingerprint, if any extra element has entered, okay, so you can immediately find out from the spectra what is the extra element contamination in the given specimen. Okay. Let us say you have bought some material, let us say castor oil, you have bought it. So when you buy it, it looks very good, nice color, but actually the seller, what he will do, he will add some extra coloring agents, some extra cheap oil into that, and he will sell it because he will earn money. So you can check it in laboratory. You subject that to infrared spectroscopy, allow some radiation to fall on that, find out the spectrum emitted by the castor oil. So from that you can find out the various wavelengths emitted. So from that you can identify what are the elements present in the castor oil. Okay. So original castor oil spectra you will be having, the contaminated castor oil spectra you have determined. So both you compare, then you will come to know that what is the contamination in the market specimen. Okay. So that is why it can be used to identify contamination, isomers and isotopes present in it. Various complex mixtures can be identified with this. But only thing is that what is the advantage here? It is sensitive and very minute quantity of specimen is required. Not a very big quantity is required. small quantity of specimen you can use for doing this type of experiments. So this is about infrared spectroscopy. So infrared spectroscopy, it talks about only absorption. Okay, it is of course spectrophotometry, including what type of radiation? Infrared radiation. So you are only talking about absorption, and you will be getting the spectrum of the absorption lines of the specimen, not anything else. Got it? So this is about infrared spectra. So in this any doubt is there, you can ask me. So otherwise I will go to next part of the spectrum. Any doubt? Yes?
No, ma'am.
No. Fine. So next I go to Raman spectrum, Raman spectroscopy. So this is popularly referred as Raman shift or Raman effect. It is also called. So blue color of sky, it is because of Raman effect. So this was found by Raman. So that's why it is Raman effect it is called. So then naturally, why the sky looks blue? So the solar radiation coming from heaven or from sun, they will get scattered by the molecules of air. Okay. So maximum emission or scattering occurs in blue region. Okay. So that is why when you look at the sky,
Blue and violet.
violet, but maximum earth it has got an envelope of water vapor is there. Water emits in blue region. Blue is nothing but it is a dilution of violet.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So that is why sky looks violet, sorry, blue, water looks blue. Okay. If you stand on some other planet, look at earth, earth looks blue. The photograph of earth looks blue. Okay. So that is because of Raman effect. Then what is Raman effect? It is nothing but it is scattering. Infrared spectroscopy is only absorption. And what is Raman effect? It only talks about scattering. Scattering of infrared here. Infrared scatters in Raman effect, but in IR only it absorbs. That is the difference. Okay. So here, while scattering, what happens to the molecules of the media? That is very important. Let us say a radiation is incident on a molecule. Okay. Electromagnetic radiation. It is associated with electric vector and magnetic vector. Yesterday we have discussed it. Okay. So when it reaches or it nears, touches the molecule, then it polarizes the molecule. So yesterday we were talking about it. Earlier, before the radiation falls, the charge distribution is spherical. Perfect sphere the molecule will be. So once the radiation falls or touches the molecule, what happens? The distribution of charge changes. Positive charges gets accumulated to one end of the molecule, negative charges get separated to another end. So there is a distance between cloud with positive charges and negative charges. They are separated there. That's why they are called polarized. So polarization effect is observed when radiation, that is infrared radiation, scatters from a molecule. It scatters and goes away, but polarization occurs to the scattering media. Okay. So I have shown in the diagram, you can see that the polarizability factor, I am calling it as alpha. Okay. So as a function of distance x, if you take ratio of change in alpha as a function of x, if it is not 0, that is greater than 0, then we can say that the molecule is Raman active. So if it is 0, then you cannot study under Raman spectroscopy. For Raman active molecules, what is the condition? Dou alpha by dou x, it should be greater than 0. Okay. So go to next slide. So there I have shown you a molecule. So there is a radiation incident on the molecule. So what is the frequency of the radiation? Frequency of radiation, I have taken it as mu naught, neutral value that is. So after the scattering, what happens? Three possibilities are there. So incident radiation, it escapes without any scattering. So it comes out with frequency nu naught. That is elastic scattering. So that we call it as Rayleigh scattering. Yesterday we have discussed this. Okay. There is two more possibilities. So nu naught, it may have a positive shift. So that I have written as nu naught plus delta nu, or it may have a negative shift. So nu naught minus delta nu. So correspondingly they are called as Stokes line and anti-Stokes line. So to honor Raman, these are called Stokes-Raman line, nu naught minus delta nu, and anti-Stokes-Raman line, nu naught plus delta nu. Okay. So original line will be there in the spectrum with nu naught. That is due to elastic scattering, Rayleigh scattering. So along with that, two more new lines are observed in the spectra. Okay. So one is Stokes line, another is anti-Stokes line. Fine. So this is about the Raman effect and scattering process, Stokes and anti-Stokes line, and what is the advantage of this method. So where it can be used. So here the material need not be transparent. It can be in any format. The radiation will fall on that, it will get scattered and go away. It will do its work. It will get scattered, it will impart some energy to the molecule and it will go away. Now the material will be interacting. It is showing its excitation and de-excitation spectra. Okay. So that is why the material need not be transparent. It can be in any format, gas, liquid, solid. It can be in any format, transparent or non-transparent. Both are allowed. Okay. So it can be used for compounds, mixtures also you can use, not original. For example, water. It consists of two molecules, hydrogen, oxygen. You can use Raman scattering process. Okay. Carbon monoxide. It is having carbon and oxygen. So two atoms are there. So like this, or mixture of that. There are two things are there. Two chemicals are added together. You can subject it to Raman scattering and find out the corresponding elements present in the compound. Okay. So here water is not compulsory. So in infrared radiation absorption, the solution format the specimen should be, that is aqueous solution, water, salt, dissolved substance you have to use, aqueous solution it is called. Whereas in Raman spectroscopy, no need, that is water is there, it's okay. If it is not there, then also it's okay. Okay. Water is not compulsory factor there. Okay. So here wave number. So sorry, this is actually nu bar. So nu bar varies between 4000 to 10 inverse of centimeter. Okay. This can be covered by Raman spectra. So you can see how sensitive it is. Okay. A small contamination in micrograms can be found out from the Raman spectra. Okay. So Raman spectral band is very sharp. Very sharp. You can identify the element very quickly. Okay. And both polar and non-polar materials, they participate in Raman spectra. So polar and non-polar, what is the difference? Polar is water soluble. Non-polar is non-water soluble there. Okay. So these are the advantage of Raman spectrum. Okay. So with this now, I am concluding. What is that? Raman spectra. Okay. So what is Raman spectra? It is scattering of infrared radiation.
Scattering of infrared.
Infrared. Okay. And what is infrared spectra? It is absorption only, no scattering. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is the difference. So if you have got any doubts, you can ask me. Any doubt is there?
No,
Yes?
ma'am.
No?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
No. So I have shared two more slides. So it talks about
Yes, ma'am.
ESR. ESR
Yes, sir. Yes,
called
ma'am.
as EPR. Okay. So what is ESR? It is called electron spin resonance. It is also called EPR. What is EPR? Electron paramagnetic resonance. Okay. It is also called PMR, paramagnetic resonance. Okay. So here para means the elements which are having one paired unpaired spin. they are called as paramagnetic in nature. Okay, ferromagnetic, they will be having paired. So of course you can separate it and form permanent and natural and artificial magnets, etc. Anything, let it be. One unpaired spin or one unpaired electron is necessary to study the paramagnetic resonance. Okay, so now you open up the slide. So there I'll show you one by one. So what I have written, EPR spectra, you open it. Just a minute. So you can see the first slide, I have written there ESR, I have also written EPR, both mean same. Okay. So what is happening here, the transition takes place between the two states of the same electron, unpaired electron in the ground state or in the excited state. It is flipping it is. Okay. So let us say it is up spin in the ground state. Okay. So then the electron energy is absorbed by the electron and it will go to down spin, and now it is in the excited state E. Okay, and it emits out energy. Okay, that energy can be studied, that is ESR spectra. So now you will ask me how to separate 0 and E. So to separate 0 and E, what you have to do, you have to keep the specimen with an unpaired electron in the magnetic field. So that is why it is called electron spin resonance or EPR, paramagnetic resonance. Paramagnetic, you remember magnetic word there, CMR also it is called. So magnetic field is necessary here. Okay, so but energy difference here, it is very small here. So usually electrons, they have the energy in electron volts. Nuclei, they will have energy in million electron volt, MeV. So 1 million difference will be there between energy state of electron and nucleus. Okay, so that is why to obtain or excite the spin resonance of electron,